My fiancée just shocked me. She said, "I want my first love on our honeymoon or I'm leaving." I stayed calm, but that night I secretly changed every detail of our trip. It started like any ordinary evening. The hum of city lights outside our apartment mingling with the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. I remember exactly how she looked that night, her eyes wide, almost desperate, as if she were about to reveal a secret that would tip our world over in an instant. I had been scrolling through my phone, mind wandering between emails and messages, when she finally spoke. Her voice was steady, unnervingly calm, but the words she uttered were a thunderclap in the quiet of our living room. "I want to invite my first love to our honeymoon or I'm leaving." I froze, a forkful of pasta halfway to my mouth, unsure whether I had heard her correctly. My fiancée, the woman I had promised forever to, was presenting me with an ultimatum that no one could prepare for. The room seemed smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in as I tried to digest the enormity of her statement. I wanted to ask questions: why? How? What happened between you two? But before anything escaped my lips, she continued, her tone implying I had no choice in the matter. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. My mind raced, calculating every possible scenario. Anger flared up for a moment, but I pushed it down. This wasn't a confrontation to be won by yelling or tears. This was chess, not checkers, and she had just moved her queen in a way I hadn't expected. "Do as you wish," I said, my voice neutral, betraying none of the storm brewing inside me. She blinked at my response, perhaps expecting a fight, maybe even relief. I saw a flicker of something confusion, triumph in her eyes, but I didn't react. I left the room, retreating to the balcony, letting the night air wash over me, giving me space to think. The city stretched out below, lights shimmering like stars fallen to earth, and I realized that in one sentence, she had pulled the rug out from under our entire relationship. As the minutes passed, I considered my options. Cancel the honeymoon, confront her first love, let her go. None of it felt satisfying, none of it felt right. I wanted control, the kind that didn't rely on her whims or someone else's presence. And then, slowly, I began to plan not to punish, not to retaliate in a petty way, but to reclaim the narrative of our lives. That night, while she slept beside me, I stayed awake. I made lists, changed passwords, checked flight details. I examined our bookings with the precision of a surgeon, dissecting every element I had previously agreed upon. Hotel rooms, excursions, dinner reservations. It was negotiable. All of it was mine to reshape. I could twist the plans in ways that would assert my boundaries without a confrontation, silently demonstrating that love cannot be dictated by ultimatums. I started with the flights. I called the agency, citing a sudden change in circumstances, and altered our departure time. I moved it back by several days, subtly shifting the schedule to catch her first love off guard if he expected to be part of any arrangement. Then, the accommodations. The suite we had booked together was no longer available. I upgraded it, yes, but to a location that was secluded, intimate, and entirely ours, cutting out any possibility of an interloper joining without an invitation I would never extend as I worked. I felt a quiet exhilaration, a sense of power I hadn't anticipated. I wasn't acting out of spite. I was exercising agency over my life, asserting that no one past loves, current desires could override the respect and mutual commitment a partnership requires. And somewhere in that calculated calm, a narrative began to form in my mind. A story of reclamation that would have consequences far beyond this immediate crisis. By the time dawn crept through the blinds, I had drafted a note. It was brief, factual, almost detached. I've taken care of everything. The plans are ready, the payments settled. Enjoy the trip. No accusation, no plea, no anger jest, the bare bones of reality. I left it on the kitchen counter, knowing she would read it when she woke. When she did, the initial confusion on her face gave way to disbelief. Her first love had been expecting an easy entry into our lives, perhaps imagining a role he had no right to claim. But as the implications of my rearrangements settled in, it became clear that he wouldn't be joining. In fact, my quiet assertiveness ensured that his presence was irrelevant, erased from the experience she had tried to manipulate. The first chapter of this ordeal ended with a lesson I hadn't fully anticipated. Love, when confronted with ultimatums and threats, reveals not just who we are to others, but who we are to ourselves. I realized that night, looking out at the city once more, that in the theater of relationships, sometimes the most powerful act is silent recalibration. The stage had been reset, the pieces realigned, and I was ready to watch how the next moves would unfold. The morning light spilled across the kitchen, illuminating the note I had left. She picked it up with trembling fingers, scanning the words as if trying to decode a hidden threat or a message of surrender. Neither existed. The message was neutral, precise, final. It was the embodiment of control without confrontation. A calculated assertion of ownership over our shared plans. Her face, a mixture of frustration and incredulity, told me everything I needed to know. She had expected shock, anger, or tears. Instead, she found clarity and a silent wall of authority. I could see it in her eyes. The realization that the honeymoon she had envisioned, complete with her first love as an invited shadow, would not happen. Not under my watch. While she grappled with the reality of my alterations, I continued my quiet orchestration. I called the travel agency again, rearranging activities to suit only what we would enjoy together. Excursions, dinner reservations, even small details like spa appointments or private beach dinners, etches meticulously, adjusted to maximize our shared experience while minimizing any interference. I ensured that the new schedule was flawless, a flawless trap of normalcy that left no cracks for intrusion. Later that day, she confronted me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you change everything?" She looked at me as though I had betrayed her, but her words revealed something deeper. She was realizing that control could not be wrested from me so easily. I let her speak, listening without interruption, letting the storm of her emotions build and break within the confines of our apartment. I thought you'd agree," she stammered, almost as if admitting a crime she hadn't committed. "I thought it wouldn't matter." Her words revealed the fragility of her confidence, the misguided belief that the past could dictate the present. I remained calm, replying only with, "The present is ours, not a rehearsal for old memories." My voice carried no malice, only clarity. She flinched, as if hearing something she had never considered. The idea that love could be, that loyalty was more than convenience. Meanwhile, her first love, oblivious to the meticulous rearrangement, was caught off guard. A casual glance at the shared itinerary, which she had perhaps sent him in expectation of my compliance, revealed a completely different plan. The flights he expected, the accommodations, even the timing of excursions, everything had been rewritten. He called her, bewildered, demanding answers, but she could offer none. I had already ensured that his involvement was impossible without outright confrontation by evening. The apartment had settled into a strange quiet. She was subdued, pacing occasionally, her energy spent on trying to comprehend the depth of my silent resistance. I observed her, noting the subtle shifts in posture, the hesitant way she considered approaching me. I did not respond immediately to her glances or unspoken pleas. The power of observation is often underestimated, but in matters of the heart it can be decisive. The next few days were a careful dance. I coordinated with local contacts at the destination, ensuring that every detail of the honeymoon was both exquisite and exclusive. Private tours, secluded beaches, dinner under the stars, all arranged so that there could be no uninvited presence. Every phone call I made, every email I sent, was executed with precision, creating a web of logistics that secured our time together. When she discovered my behind-the-scenes maneuvering, she confronted me again, this time with more intensity. You did all of this without me." Her voice carried disbelief, hurt, and a trace of awe. I simply nodded, maintaining the calm demeanor I had cultivated. "I did what was necessary," I said. "This trip is about us, not anyone else, not the past. Only us." Her first love, increasingly frustrated by the inability to manipulate the situation, began to realize that his expected role in our lives was non-existent. Every attempt he made to influence the itinerary was thwarted by my silent interventions. Emails redirected, calls unanswered. Even his casual hints at involvement were met with deliberate, invisible blocks. It was subtle but undeniable. He could not intrude. That evening, as I prepared the final set of confirmations for the trip, I reflected on the transformation occurring in our relationship. The honeymoon, once a symbol of compromise and uncertainty, had become a testament to control, clarity, and the strength of mutual respect, or at least the absence of external interference. She watched me from across the room, a mixture of admiration and resentment in her gaze, slowly realizing that love, when challenged by ultimatums, demands not submission but intelligent, deliberate action. In that quiet space between preparation and departure, I felt an unexpected sense of anticipation, not for confrontation, not for victory, but for the unfolding narrative that would test boundaries, reveal character, and perhaps, ultimately, define the true nature of our bond. I had rewritten the rules, redirected the path, and established a framework in which love could either flourish or falter, but only on the terms of those who were truly present. The morning of departure arrived with a surreal clarity. Bags packed, documents organized, and the itinerary printed in meticulous detail. I waited in the quiet of our apartment for her reaction. She moved like a shadow, hesitant, weighing every step, as if the reality of what I had done was both liberating and frightening. Her first love had already called multiple times, demanding answers, but she didn't respond. The tension in the air was palpable, electric prelude to the journey we were about to take. We arrived at the airport, the hum of travelers and rolling suitcases forming a background symphony. Her eyes scanned the crowds, perhaps unconsciously searching for him, but he was nowhere. Every glance she stole toward the gate reflected a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, a silent acknowledgement that I had rewritten the entire experience. I said nothing, simply allowed the moment to settle, observing how control could alter not just plans, but emotions themselves. As the plane lifted off, the city shrinking beneath us, a strange calm took over. She turned to me, searching my expression for clues, for apologies, or perhaps for confrontation. I offered none. Instead, I allowed the silence to speak. Silence, I realized, has a voice louder than any argument. It carries weight, clarity, and the undeniable assertion of boundaries. Upon arrival, the new destination revealed itself like a secret waiting to be discovered. A secluded villa overlooking a tranquil sea, private paths to hidden beaches, sunsets that painted the horizon with impossible colors, all of it orchestrated to remove interference, to create a world entirely ours. She moved through the space with a mix of wonder and restrained appreciation, slowly realizing that my planning had created a reality far beyond what she had envisioned, one that belonged only to the two of us. Her first love, meanwhile, was learning the limits of influence the hard way. Every attempt to interject, every suggestion or insinuation he had hoped would sway her, fell flat. Emails were redirected, calls unanswered, plans adjusted. He was present in thought only, a ghost of expectations that reality had already erased. She received his messages on her phone, a growing tension building as she realized that the power she had tried to wield was gone. I watched, noting her subtle expressions: confusion, frustration, and, perhaps, a dawning respect for the quiet authority I had exercised. The days unfolded like a carefully scripted play, each moment revealing layers of emotion and character. She attempted, cautiously, to discuss her feelings about the past, her unresolved attachments, and the awkward tension that lingered. I listened, responding only when necessary, each word measured, deliberate. It was not punitive, nor dismissive. It was a reflection of how love must sometimes navigate the intersection of desire, history, and respect. A turning point came during a private dinner on the beach. Candles flickered in the gentle evening breeze, casting dancing shadows across the sand. She spoke softly, almost vulnerably, about regrets, fears, and the complexities of moving forward. I held her gaze, letting the sincerity of the setting amplify the gravity of my presence. I reminded her, gently but firmly, that love is not ownership, nor is it a negotiation of past entanglements. It is mutual respect, shared commitment, and the courage to honor boundaries without resentment. Her first love, trapped in a distant phone call and an inaccessible reality, was a silent witness to this transformation. Each attempt to reclaim influence, each expectation of intrusion, had been neutralized by the subtle precision of my arrangements. I realized then that true control does not need confrontation. It requires foresight, patience, and the unwavering understanding that presence and consent define participation in any shared life. By the final evening, the impact of the silent orchestration became undeniable. She looked at me with a complexity of emotion I had never seen before: gratitude intertwined with awe, residual frustration softened by understanding. We had navigated a storm without sinking, recalibrating our bond in a way that left no room for old shadows to dictate the present. The honeymoon was not just a trip. It was a testament to the power of deliberate action, measured responses, and the art of reclaiming narrative without conflict. As we watched the sun dip below the horizon, the ocean reflecting a kaleidoscope of colors, I felt the culmination of weeks of quiet strategy settle around us. Love, I realized, is both fragile and resilient. It can be tested by ultimatums, past attachments, and unforeseen demands, but it survives when boundaries are respected and clarity prevails. Our journey had begun with a shock, a demand that could have shattered everything. but it ended with something far more profound, a reaffirmation of choice, agency, and the understanding that true intimacy is built not on surrender, but on mutual respect and deliberate care. The night drew to a close, the villa silent except for the distant lull of waves against the shore. She fell asleep beside me, exhausted by the emotional journey, while I remained awake, reflecting on the twists, the lessons, and the quiet victories of strategy over chaos. Her first love's shadow had faded, not through confrontation, but through the deliberate, patient orchestration of circumstance. And in that fading shadow, I understood a vital truth, in love as in life. The one who moves with patience, clarity, and unwavering resolve often defines the narrative, shaping reality without uttering a single word of conflict.